Let us finish this perusal of the situation of Orthodox Judaism, Judaism in general, throughout the world on the eve of World War I, with a comment about what then happened during World War I. Now, of course, there was terrible, terrible suffering during World War I. Far more soldiers were killed in World War I than in World War II, although in World War II, more civilians were killed. But it was a horrible war which was devastating and destroyed, really, Europe to a point that Britain and France never recovered. The victors were the ones who lost in the long run. Germany did recover because of a certain charismatic leader later on, but obviously went off the rails in a different direction. Basically, because of the war, United States of America emerged as the predominant power because it was the only power which had not been directly affected by the war, as the war never reached our shores. But it was participated also only in the second half of the war, really the last 18 months of the war, and therefore its casualties were nowhere near as great as were suffered by the combatants in Europe. So America emerges as the primary power in the world, which had not necessarily been prior to that. And the European nations are totally vanquished, and the loss of life is incredible, true carnage, as they say, and that was all very, very bad. But something very, very good happened in the Jewish world. What happened in the Jewish world was that before World War I, nobody traveled anywhere for long distances. I should say that this goes back to the late 1800s. But then in the late 1800s, a lot of people traveled by steamship to get away from oppression or economic difficulties to get to another country. But nobody visited each other and learned from each other. In other words, if you grew up in a Hasidic home, you probably were surrounded by Hasidim and never met anybody non-Hasidic in your life. If you grew up in a Litvische home, which was a Misnagdische home, you probably only met Litvaks and never interacted with anybody else your entire life. Perhaps an exotic traveler would come from time to time, but your Litvak culture was the be-all and end-all.